Yeah, and I think my literal response to your text was basically like, that's like how I approach photography. It's like, I just like, when I see some weird, like I sent you the other day, or just the other day, I sent you like a picture of a red pole, like in some
marks.
bushes. Yeah, and I was like, I see it's like to most people that's just a red pole, but I was like, oh, like maybe
narrative.
that's some cool like weird thing. Like I don't even know what that thing is, but it's like weird and like I don't know. There could be like a story behind it. Like I like taking pictures that like make and then like maybe making up like a story in my head later of like what's going on in there. And I think the camera is a part of that process as well too.
Yeah. Yay, we're here.
Yay.
Finally. Podcast is happening. Super stoked to be here. Thank you, Casey, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you for inviting me to do this. Super stoked.
Been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while. Thankfully, we've built up a really cool friendship, which has been awesome.
Yes.
And I've been following your work for quite some time now. We'll get into that as well. But
likewise.
Yeah. The great thing is we've already had a cool rapport. So that's what makes these episodes in my mind always great, because it's not like a cold start. It's like there's some familiarity and cadence of flow. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you about various questions that I've written out. Since we agreed that we're going to do this, I usually kind of jot out a bunch of ideas and notes to discuss. So yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah.
Me too.
Thank you for taking the time. We should maybe start. I always like to start at the beginning for people that might not know who you are, kind of where you came from. Because we all have, as an artist, we all have kind of what made us who we are, but it's hard to see from where we are currently, all the things that led up to it. Did you know you had a creative calling since the beginning of like?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I was always like, I always had a home movie camera or whatever, I always had a group of friends who would just film stuff whenever, even when we just like hung out, we would just like film ridiculous little shorts when I was like 12 or whatever. And then like, all throughout high school, we always essentially documented a group of friends used to walk to school all the time, and we'd all just film our adventures of walking to school, and we kind of put that together into stuff. And then we all liked watching movies. And one of my friends, good friends, from first grade onward, had like essentially a movie theater, like a big projector in his house. So it was like the ultimate place to like watch movies and stuff. So that was, that kind of, I think all those things helped kind of solidify that I wanted to do that as, a fulfilling career choice, I guess. That being said, my career through college wasn't actually in a creative industry. It was I studied computer network engineering, and I have like a computer background, one of which I'm still very interested in. And but I kind of like I kind of transitioned into doing film work and media work sort of organically, just from it being a passion of mine. And then it ended up becoming a career through family, friends, and then up into working for production companies and all that kind of stuff. It kind of just snowballed while I was studying the computer stuff. So, but it's always been something that I've been interested in. And, I've always loved making things, and I love that film and photography are kind of like the intersection of technology and art, and I really love both of those things. So that's why I love it. I love all the computer tech aspects of it, and I love the making things and having the satisfying feeling of being able to create something which I also get from computers as well too. Setting up computers and servers is just as satisfying as making art because, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
It's cool that you're using almost both sides of your brain then, huh? Like intrinsically, they're kind of connected, one and the same. The curiosities are being pushed, like the logical brain and then the abstract creative brain.
Yeah.
Do they ever fight for you? Like, do you ever have like I'm feeling more creative, or actually would rather be more engineering focused on technology stuff, or do they kind of cross over nicely?
Sometimes maybe. I tend to overthink things, and that's probably an intersection of those two things where I try to analyze a lot of outcomes, and then, that keeps me from following the intuition, which is probably the more important thing. But, I'm definitely like very like a yin yang or yin yang of like intuition and analytics essentially. So, yeah, sometimes they clash, but sometimes they don't. So it's good.
It's cool. You've almost kind of made like with your channel, we can get into that too. Is like you've almost, would you say it's like an altered ego that you've created, or is that you, but an extension of you?
It might be a bit of both. I'd say, yeah, it's kind of, slowly evolved into like a character as opposed to just being me, which is kind of how it started out as. But yeah, I could see that as kind of the alter ego. And the name GX Ace actually comes from an alter ego, quite literally of mine. It essentially was my, like, the name I used on the internet. Essentially, it started all the way back in playing Halo on the PC. That's where the GX came from, because everybody used to have clans, and that, as with a lot of YouTube channel names, they kind of sometimes it just started out as a channel name, and then the channel gets big, and then you're like, oh well, that just happened to be this like random, like Big Guy 27 is now my YouTube channel name or whatever. So, yeah, but it actually has some meaning to me because GX Ace has always been a name that I've used for stuff. And so, yeah, it is kind of like a alter ego, I guess.
Huh. What's funny is it's cool to know that, because I just thought it was attached to like your love for Fuji cameras or something, So I was like,
yeah, I've been using
GX
since literally like high school, if not earlier.
Halo times then.
Yeah, the Halo times.
What's the GX stand for?
I honestly don't know, because it was literally just the GX clan, and I was just one of the GX clan, because you used to put your name in brackets in like a clan, like on Call of Duty or Halo or something, or Counter-Strike or whatever. So I actually don't know, because I just joined a clan called GX. I think it's a cool combination of letters that are like aesthetically pleasing. Like I think a G and an X like look nice graphically together
too, which is nice.
Yeah. Sometimes they do uppercase, lowercase, sometimes both uppercase, but yeah, I don't know. I wish there was a more profound meaning behind that one, but
I think that's actually pretty profound if you think about it, because it's like your childhood instincts to play video games, which is art and technology merged, and then this clan that you attached to, and then you became this thing. It's pretty cool, it's like it's natural. It kind of occurred, which is cool.
Yeah.
Rather than, it would be kind of odd if it was like, yeah, and then there's this, and then it's like my great grandfather's uncle's name is this, and then he shot a deer, and then it's like, okay, easy, man. Yeah. But yeah, okay. I remember playing Halo a long time ago. I recently, I think I taught, because we both played Nintendo Switch, and I just got like all of the Doom, the original Doom has been ported to the Switch, and it's just like, oh man, childhood nostalgia. On my wall, I have the original Doom poster and stuff.
Oh no, it's like him on the like pile of bodies shooting down. That's a classic one.
Just super classic. That whole era is just so classic, and I think Halo is. You could tell that the engineers for that game were deeply inspired by the engineers from Doom, because the way that the game played from an emotional standpoint. Because every game has its own emotion, So Doom freaks me out to this day, even, and I love it. There's this. We've talked about this in conversations where there's this lack of clarity, and your brain fills it in the rest. And there's this beautiful thing that happens with this lack of clarity that is actually pretty great, So, but yeah. Anyways, a digression, but but okay. So, what's really cool to hear is that you've just been, from what I understand, is naturally curious, but you also have this technological side of things that you're also curious about. So it's not all just abstract. And the precipice of that is cinema, cameras, cinematography, all these things. It's all because it's when science and art merge perfectly to this like infallible thing, this object that does this thing. It captures light photons and it's this beautiful thing. What was your first experience with an actual camera? Can you recall?
It would have been my parents' like Canon AE1 film camera.
Nice.
Yeah, that would probably be if I can. Well, at least that was when I first was like interested in photography, I guess. I just remembered like seeing it at some point, like when I was like, oh, photography is like a thing. Maybe I could do that. That sounds fun. And then I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure there's like a camera somewhere in my house. And then I found those ones. And yeah, so kind of my first like photography was on film. And that would have been like in, I don't know, like 2006 or 7, probably 2005, maybe.
That's such a common, that was like a common gateway drug camera, I think.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
It still is too.
I have one of
it's still
those.
relatively cheap. Yeah. Mine, that one actually got stolen, which sucks because it took like all of my childhood photos, and I really wish I would have that camera still.
I was like, wait, you only have 36 shots of your childhood?
My parents were really selective with the poses they took.
Now he's 4.
Shooting ratio of 100%. They were all bangers.
Yeah, all bangers. Yeah, it was 35 shots on it, and then somebody stole it. Damn it!
Kids don't understand these days.
They don't. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a bummer. But that's also the interesting thing. I feel like every photographer that I've met and talked to about this stuff is somebody like their grandparents were into it, or their mom or their dad introduced them. It's almost always an introduction from a family member, though, or there was a family camera at home.
Yeah. So it was the family camera. My parents weren't really like photographers, but they did like have a nice camera, I get, for the time. It was actually my friend Austin who got me into photography. It was actually because of the school yearbook. So it's like, just like, he's like, oh, I'm going to do photography now. I was like, well, I want to do that too. It sounds cool. And then we like took some random terrible photos of stuff, and then just kind of learned with film, and like some Nikon D40 was like the first digital camera that I got. And then I was pretty much always like shooting film concurrently with digital essentially since I started, because you could actually still get it developed like at Walmart and stuff like next day pretty much back in 2006 or whatever. But it's unfortunate that infrastructure is kind of voided out due to just evolution of things. We've talked about that a little bit too, and I loved your perspective on this because you do shoot with both film and digital, and I think you have an affinity for both. You mentioned something that it's been sitting in my head, and I've been rolling it around my head a lot because I'm going back to film. I'm always going to shoot digital because I just love the ease of it, and I love that exchange. But I'm also like going into film, and I'm not just going into 35 mil, I'm going into 120 with medium format like a complete idiot. So so it's expensive, and I didn't realize what I'm getting myself into. You're a bad friend, Casey. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah, but you said this one thing that's really like kind of stuck with me, which I thought was really, really cool to talk about here, is that you feel, being a film photographer and being a digital photographer, that with film you can replicate those same things. You can replicate the look pixel to pixel potentially. I'm paraphrasing what you said, and please jump in, but
I mean, like,
represented the same. Yeah.
I'm also not claiming that I've been able to completely replicate it. I think that I can make stuff that I'm pretty sure if you posted it on like an analog film photography forum, people wouldn't be able to tell you that wasn't a film photo. But like, I just think just like following the logical thread essentially, like, you know, a film image can be displayed on a digital display.
Yes.
Like, it's literally already being replicated. Like, you scanned it. That's now a digital image was made using. Yes. So, like,
1 to 0.
That analog information was stored digitally. Like, it literally can be 100% replicated. Like,
yeah.
It's being replicated by the screen. So, like, obviously the screen has the ability to replicate what the image looks like. And the majority of people who are looking at analog photos, I would say, are probably looking at them on a screen. You know, not everybody, I would say not the majority of them are getting printed. So, like, and even paper has, like, limited dynamic range too. So it's not like, paper has less dynamic range than the film does. So, and less dynamic range than a screen does. So technically printing is theoretically worse quality. It's, you know, it's going to have a lower dynamic range. So, yeah, I don't know. It's
I thought about that too.
Yeah, I think paper has like 7 to 8 stops of dynamic range.
Pathetic. Paper is so pathetic.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
Dude,
pathetic.
Yeah, what kind of Alexa? You need like a Alexa paper.
Yeah, it's like an Alexa Micro stops. There. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need
I never
Alexa,
even thought about that. This is why I love
paper.
Talking about this with you, because you are a technician too. You can. Not only are you an artist, you know how to make things visually beautiful and tell a story and have a mood and tone, but you can talk technically, which I think is fantastic. And I don't think a lot of people can thread that line. And to your case, you mentioned that I'm not sure if you've been able to replicate the two, obviously, because it is difficult. There's a lot of, like, for example, I'm getting into the film thing, so I'm actually like understanding what film stocks to use when and where and what format and so on and so forth. Like, you wouldn't use a tungsten graded or rated film stock for daytime or outside time, because then it would just be like super yellowy and blasted out. And it wouldn't fit for that. So that's just one variable amongst potential hundreds. Lighting conditions, you know, all of these things. And when you're trying to pinpoint a thing, sometimes you can get close. I think I mentioned it when I was in Japan. I would capture some photos with certain recipes that I put in my XE4, and I was like, oh my God, this looks like film. But then I would go outside and switch the situation. Like, this looks like digital. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's a very...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just rambling on. So, but it's an ephemeral pursuit. It's like, it's constantly shifting. Have you found like this actually works with this situation and I can get really close to the film look, you know? Has there been moments where you're like, oh crap, this is it?
Yeah, I think natural lighting is easier, I would say. Like shooting outside, I think it's easier to get it to look like film. You know, people always talk about like the beautiful highlight roll off of film. Like, yeah, that is a thing, but also that, like, again, it's being replicated on a screen, and the screen is a digital screen that does not have infinite steps of brightness. So, like, it's literally being replicated. And it's just a curve. You know, it's you know, obviously there's like, you know, 8-bit can't really display like a smooth gradient, but like, I don't know. Also, when people talk about like, oh, this 16-bit camera, it's so, like, I can tell the colors are just so much more saturated. I'm like, you physically can't see the difference. Your monitor is probably 8 to 10, maybe 10-bit. So you literally physically cannot tell the difference. Like, it's physically impossible by the laws of physics for you to know the difference between a 16-bit and a 10-bit image by looking at it. So
because it's got so much depth to it that your eye can't even perceive it.
Well, it's just the computer display can't display it. Like it's only displaying 8 of 16 bits. Wow. So like the display just physically can't show you them. So you physically can't. It's just not being shown to you.
So much.
Obviously, like you can push and pull things more, and that's where the bit depth comes into play, but like you physically can't see a difference. Like it literally isn't showing you the difference. Man. So, you know,
I didn't even think about that either.
Get on like high horses of these,
like these
nitpicks gradients. When people say stuff online about that are tech, you know, and I guess that's where the technical side of things come, because I have more experience with the technical side of stuff, but seeing certain things, It's always
You're not being rude about it though. It's just like what you understand too.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, that is a really good thing because I've heard all these things. I think a lot of it is just, it's misinformation. There's a ton of misinformation going on the internet because information's cheap now. The exchange of information is so cheap and everybody's able to just blast things out. I think to talk about what you mentioned earlier about this highlight fall off that everybody is super stoked about. From my studies of understanding what films are, which is new, is you overexpose film and you underexpose digital. Because highlight retention in digital is harder, but highlight retention in film is easier. So, and based on what you said, natural light outside with the sun overexposing, you can get a nicer depth of your highlights, I guess, if that makes sense. That's what it seems like people are going for. But you don't get that. It's the opposite world with the two. And I think people get that mixed up. And so you have to think about it, approach and expose for that ecosystem. Correct, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah. I will say,
it's...
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Just they're two different beasts, but essentially, and this is something that Steve Yedlin has talked about. Ryan Johnson's, is it Johnson or Johnston?
Johnston.
It's Johnston.
Johnston and Johnston.
Johnston and Johnston, a family company. His DP Steve Yedlin has a huge in-depth explanation of kind of film and digital and recreating it and all that stuff. He kind of speaks in a way that he's describing very basic things like a lookup table, but he describes it in a very pretentious sounding, overly technical way that makes it seem incredibly impressive. So that I kind of get nitpicked. He's like, yeah, it's doing incredibly advanced algorithms. And I'm like, yeah, it's called a matrix, and it's literally what every LUT does. But it just explains it in an interesting, a lookup table.
Well, that's how you get paid.
Explains it in a very no. but he is right. It's just the way that he explains it is kind of over the top. But I definitely, if anybody's interested in this kind of stuff, I would recommend looking into. There's a couple videos of Steve Yedlin on YouTube where he goes super in depth into resolution and film as a medium and replicating it with digital. He's basically cameras are just information capture devices, data devices. Yeah. And just the more data you have, if you just have the data, you can do, whatever with it. So,
or if you know how to receive the data, let's say a wonderful cinematographer who really took digital on in it was kind of a pioneer was Roger Deakins, and his wonderful cinematic eye and understanding how to expose light and understanding the information device to receive it. I always think to this day, the No Country for Old Men is one of my all-time favorite films, and it's such a beautiful film, and it was shot digitally, and I think it was shot in HD resolution. If I can't recall, I think it was something
I don't
think it's 2.5K or something like that, which is crazy,
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, because even up until the newer generations of Alexa, they didn't shoot 4K. They were 3.2K.
Yeah.
So there wasn't even.
There's that whole resolution thing. Everybody's like, it's only 8K. I'm like, what do you mean only 8K? Get an 8K file away from me. I don't want that near my computer.
It's pretty overkill. Yeah. I mean, it's if there was 10 million K, it's not like you're going to be able to see my red blood cells with it. There's only so much information that you can resolve. So it's at some point that chasing that is pointless, but unless you want it to be the size of Manhattan in image, and then you can look at it, but it's not you're not going to see any microscopic stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to think about it like that, where you can go that far with the logic of conversation for it, That's a beautiful way to think about it. That guy, Yedlin's, they're just information capture devices, which is really cool. Yeah. You've done so many really beautiful, I don't even know if I'd call them a review. I think recalling what you do on some of these things, a review, is kind of dismissing the other thing that you do, which is this storytelling, world building mode and thought. I've listened to some other interviews kind of trying to get you to articulate that. what's your process? And I like, because I know you own a plethora of cameras and you have an affinity for each one of them. Do you just look at it and go, I think I could do this, or I have this footage from here? What's your creative process when you make your videos?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, it kind of depends. It's changing a little bit now that I want to try to kind of up the frequency a bit to play the YouTube game, essentially, you know, so I'm kind of shifting my process a little bit, but a lot of times it starts with getting the images with a camera. So, you know, I don't have very many videos on my channel. So a lot of the videos on my channel have been cameras I've used for like years, essentially. So like I have a lot of experience with them. I tend to grow attached to like physical things, which is very bad from like a spiritual standpoint.
Yeah, it is.
But I just like I like them.
I like that you're at least self-aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Maybe it's like a Marie Kondo like way where they like come into my life and they, you know,
Spark
they
joy.
give me joy and I appreciate them for existing. And
Something wrong.
you know,
with that.
I mean, art isn't just like paintings and music and stuff. Like an object is cool and can have value to me as like a thing that I enjoy and that is aesthetically pleasing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm getting real off the rails with your question though, but
It's okay. Getting the object, the joy from the object. That's why I mentioned you have an affinity for these cameras. They give you there's a certain like reciprocated ownership. You own them and it owns you. And there's this like,
yeah,
there's this bond that you set with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think just like, you know, as the channel has evolved from the very typical YouTube channel it started out in the first like 2 videos to like where it is now, which is essentially like a full-blown sci-fi universe. Like, I think like there's a lot of interesting ways to tie obviously to tie technology into a dystopian kind of setting. And I think it works so well with YouTube and the current state of social media and sponsorships and all that. Like, it's essentially the perfect backdrop to play with that kind of stuff. So like,
Yeah.
you know, I get a lot of inspiration from the way that sci-fi could play out, and was like, oh, can I like tie, you know, a camera into some interesting like concept or something, or kind of explore the idea of a camera in relation to that stuff as well too. But
And it fits in that world that you're building, which is cool. Do
yeah.
you sit down, like we all have different creative processes and stuff. Do you sit down and like, okay, today I'm going to do this, or do you set tasks or goals, or you kind of work naturally or organically? Or I noticed like too, we have this, we'll text a lot and then all of a sudden one of us will just go blank because we're busy doing something, and we both do it simultaneously, which tells me that you do deep focused work when you do it. I'd say how's it work, your process?
I'd say it's kind of it's more spontaneous. It's something I've been wanting to like make into a process more. But I kind of like, yeah, I kind of, you know, I'll work sort of organically and then kind of hit like a flow state situation. And then I'm just like powering through until it's finished kind of thing. So I kind of will go back, you know, writing here and there. I used to not write scripts. I used to just kind of ramble for 40 minutes and then cut it down.
That's a cool way.
And I'm really used to editing like documentary stuff. So I'm like, I know I can like form a story out of me just talking about something for a while. But I kind of like the voice, doing the like, it, as a character, it feels better if I write it, I think, because I can be more specific with the way that I word things. But so I'll go back and forth and maybe like write stuff here and there. And then when I do like production, I essentially just like shoot all day and into the night and do that for several days and then edit straight through, you know, without stopping. So I kind of like, once I get into the flow state, I like have to like finish what I'm working on. So I don't know, like, yeah, I've been exploring potential ways of changing the process and just kind of looking at the process Because, when you're making, I don't know, it's hard to call what I do art necessarily, but like when you're making stuff that you think is non-typical, you're like, oh, well, there's not really like a process behind it. It's not like something I could replicate easily. But, the more you do it, you're like, okay, well, there is sort of a process here that I was kind of either in denial of or didn't really realize was, there was a steps to this thing that I could do in a more efficient way. And the more that I'm doing that, the more I'm kind of being aware of, I'm kind of in the stage of like, I'm being aware of my process just in the background. And then I can start like tweaking and making it more efficient,
Sounds like you're really in this evolution stage too. Like you're still evolving through it. So you're kind of, it's probably good not to put a pin on it too, because sometimes that could turn it into repetition, it can turn it into monotonous act, And then
that's essentially, the fear is like, I don't want it to be monotonous, but I'm trying to make it into like, I'm just trying to be aware of what the process is as it happens and then kind of figuring out ways of making it sustainable and
enjoyable.
Right?
Yeah. Because you don't want to turn it into a job. What's really crazy for people that aren't really aware is that you're basically doing everything. You're acting in it. You're building the script and story. You're the producer of it. You're the director of what you make. There's also, you're the editor. You
build the props.
Build the props.
I do the marketing.
You do the marketing.
Reach out to advertise. Reach out to brands and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of.
And we've talked about that too, which will be fun. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that as well, which is like turning these efforts into tangible things that you could then feed your life with, which is really quite cool. You're just like an ultimate manifester though, which is really cool. There's a million excuses or an infinite amount of excuses to not do what you're doing daily, which is showing up, getting the work done, finding your passion and releasing that to the world. That's a pretty brave thing. There's a lot of people out there, I think, that would say like, oh yeah, I could do YouTube or this and that, but it's so much work. I think people really don't understand. Like, I don't want to put it in what you do. I don't think what you do, in my opinion, should just be put into this. You're a YouTuber. I don't think that's fair enough because I see what you do, and I know you just said you don't think it's art. I think you're absolutely creating art with what you do, in my opinion. For my own definition of art, you're expressing yourself and your passions and interests to the world. That what else is art than that? But that's just my definition of art. So you could be a dancer and do the same thing, or you could be a chef or something, but it's you expressing your curiosities, and then that then forms into this amorphous blob of creativity. Which is fun.
It's interesting. Like there's definitely, I mean, because I come from the film industry world, commercial industry world, and there's definitely, I think maybe the kind of the thought about it is shifting a little bit, because I see more people who are in the film world like going into YouTube now because they realize it's like a really good thing to do, I think anyway. But like there's definitely kind of like a potentially a negative connotation in like the filmmaking world, and kind of that as like it's lower brow, for sure. And I'm at least trying to do my part of like showing that you can do stuff that's like really interesting and high effort and cooler than kind of the typical stuff. And I have a lot of things planned for the future of the channel, and kind of like a loose long-term goal for everything. But I see a huge amount of potential on YouTube as a platform, and I'm kind of in it for the long haul, I think. I mean, it's just another TV, essentially, another movie theater, except it's, I have direct access to the people who like the things that I make, and it seems better to me, honestly, other than the fact that you don't like get to have a huge screen, which is awesome, but I'll take
that huge screen is imploding in on itself though.
I mean, I'll take hundreds of thousands of people watching the things that I do on a small screen over like 10 people watching it on the big one, so
it's inverted itself. Yeah, which is really interesting.
Yeah, but I feel like there's potential. I mean, I've already seen YouTubers leveraging like their stuff into films and getting things in theaters and showing things. Like, I feel like there's a lot of room for doing stuff like that. And, yeah, just, yeah, I want to see where this can go in that regard for sure. So
it decentralizes the power and reduces and removes the gatekeepers, which ultimately releases creativity. I feel like the human spirit is constantly in this weird act of bondage and release, and it's constantly in flux. And I see it with everything that I've been passionate about my entire life, growing up, like riding BMX, and it would like turn into X Games, and it became corporate because everybody got involved, and then it needs to release itself. It's like punk rock music or a hip hop music. All these things, they come from a desire and need of expression. And the real trick here is like trying to figure out how to grow in your own forest without killing the ecosystem that exists within it, and that's a real complicated thing. We've talked about this as well. And we talked about, you've been kind enough to ask for some things that I've, some potential advice as to marketing or strategizing the business efforts of things. And I love that stuff in a sense where I grew up as a in very humble beginnings, and money was always this evil in my mind. People that are rich are evil. Money's evil. All this stuff. And then when I started switching my brain and going, well, it's not necessarily. It actually can be an art form itself. And looking at the beauty of like exchange of energy rather than the word of money, it's like this exchange of energy and finding that. I'm on a full tangent here, but I agree with you because I think that the platform of YouTube allows for the individual to shine if the individual is willing to put in the work to shine. And that's a lot of work, but at the same time, like as you mentioned, having like 1,000 true fans show up to watch you on a small screen is more important to you than 10 showing up to the big screen, Yeah.
I mean, I've done, made films that have gone to like festivals and stuff, and like just seeing like it's almost like, yeah, I can make a short and like put it in festivals, but like I literally just release it on YouTube and way more people will see it than ever in like a festival run. And like, I'm, lucky enough to meet people like you, and like I didn't need to go to a film festival to meet cool people. So like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like the best use of time and energy these days anymore. It seems like you can just build something on your own, and the people who are interested in it will find it if you keep at it. So, and I don't want to necessarily do like, my ultimate ambition isn't just video, essentially videos about cameras. I'd love to leverage this stuff into more narrative filmmaking stuff, but I know this is an easy way to gain a following, essentially. And I don't know if that's a bad way of going about it, but like, I know that this is a way that can consistently gain more interest, and like I can inject the fun sci-fi stuff that I just want to be doing. Like, I want to build props of like sci-fi helmets and do cool lighting and find old CRT TVs and stuff. Like, I just want to do that, and that's what I would do if I was making a movie anyway. So like now I just get to do that every day. So like, I don't know. I guess I goal achieved already, but like, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but
you're merging their worlds, really.
Yeah. I'm just kind of using the gear stuff as sort of a vehicle, but I love it as much as I love anything else, So
yeah, it doesn't feel contrived or fake. It feels like it's true from you that you have an affinity for this object, and that it. I mean, you could just tell. I think that there's at least if you're tuned into reality or your honesty within yourself, you can quickly see when others are not with themselves, and and there's an abundance on that on YouTube, and I think that's what makes people look at it as not a serious, viable thing, because it doesn't take much for somebody to just hold their cell phone and talk into it, because that's what a lot of people do, which is also, I have friends that have channels that do that, and it's fully effective because it fits what they're doing. But that's what's cool about this, is there really isn't a rule. There shouldn't be a rule too. It should just be like, just go and do it, It's
I think there is a rule.
What's your rule?
And that rule is that you need to be yourself, essentially.
Okay.
Like, because you are unique, essentially. And like, there's so many YouTube channels and YouTubers that essentially just try to copy the same, like, 5 huge YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And they're like, why am I not getting any traction? I'm like, literally because you're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Like, but even if you're just like, if you just become even more yourself, like that, it's going to be more likely to succeed because there aren't other yous. So
I think that's just a fear-based mind state, and I think the algorithm supports the fear-based mind state, because it says, hey, if you do this thing that's safe, you'll get this. But the truth is, like you said, which is also very scary, is that you should lean into who you are, your inclinations, your curiosities, your oddities. Just lean into those things. And that's a real hard thing, I think, for us all as artists to admit. Like, I had this, growing up, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I couldn't draw like all the people that I loved. The Todd McFarlanes or the Frank Millers and Mike Mignola's. I was like, man, I just can't do it. And it became so frustrating for me. And I would kill myself to try and emulate them. And I would eventually get close, but then it wasn't truly me. I couldn't create anything outside of the copy of them.
Yeah.
And it was a big lesson for me at a young age, where I was like, you just have to draw or create like you create, and your work might suck in comparison, but it's like, it is what it is. Through that discovery, the style came out. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Actually, I draw like this. And then when I started to reveal that, I was like, everybody's like, oh shit, this is cool. I'm like, oh fuck, I am cool.
I feel like the like delta, like the difference between you and that thing you are aspiring to, like, is the thing that you should like. Like when you're like trying to do something and you're like, oh, well, that's not quite like what I think it should. Like, I feel like that is where like your unique thing, it's like in there is where when you're like not able to get to this other person's thing or whatever. Like, I think there's like, that's like where you need to like look to find the thing that you do well, So.
It's kind of like when Luke goes to the cave to meet Vader, So it's like you have to do it inwardly. It's a spiritual journey that you have to take, And no one could do it but you, and no one will hold your hand but you. And then one thing we've talked about a little bit about too is when you reveal this inner self of you, which is this kind of vulnerable, somewhat innocent, pure, essential version of yourself to the world. And then you're exposed publicly, and then people are so harsh. We talked about negative feedback, negative comments. I think your sentiment towards it is exactly as almost all of us feel, which is you'll get 100 great comments, and then you get one negative one, and then you just fester on the negative one. How do you process it? Because you're publicly facing, you're the person behind the camera and in front of the camera. And then you get negative feedback. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's tough, honestly, but it is weird. It's like you'll get hundreds of comments saying that it's just like amazing, absolutely love everything you do, and then you get the one comment, and then you like literally can't stop thinking about that one. You're like, well, shit, I guess I do suck, or like whatever it says. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like kind of reminding yourself that isn't true, and like it's like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but like, I've always just been very me, and I've always ran into stuff like that. So like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. Like, I honestly don't care what they think of, what people who don't like it, because it's clearly they just don't get it, because like, I enjoy it and other people enjoy it. So clearly it's just not for them. So,
You kind of want your work to be like that too.
Yeah, I feel like
you don't want to be in the middle. You want to kind of sway.
Yeah. I used to work for a company, like an insurance company, a while back, doing their video production stuff, and they were always so like adverse to, I mean, obviously they're an insurance company. It's literally their like job is like adverse to risk, but they like they were like so scared of like making anything that could possibly be like potentially even some people wouldn't like it. And I'm like, oh, it's like you're never going to do anything interesting if like literally everybody, if you're trying to like not make anybody mad, like it literally that'll never happen.
Yeah. Well, it'll never be art because art is expression, it's not, it's not the absence of expression. But at the same time, that's interesting because then there's a world for that too, which is like, it's like motel art or something, it's like, it's the
Muzak
beige thing that just sits on the wall kind of thing,
the elevator music art.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of an art as well, if you think about it too, which is weird.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, that's what makes this I always get so angry with myself that I've dedicated 40 years or 41 years of my life to this unquantifiable act. And I'm just like, I'm such an idiot. Now, why did I do this? Because it's constant turmoil,
Yeah.
It's like, fuck.
I can never succeed at a thing that doesn't have a definition.
Yeah, there's none. No one could say shit because it's like, even you look at, I love studying art history, and you have all these people that are on these tribes saying that everybody's pointing at this is good, this is value, the Mona Lisa, this is the thing, this is the quintessential. And then there's also people that say, no, it sucks, it's whack, it's not even art, it's motel art. And you're like, fuck, there's potential truth there,
Yeah.
With the negative comment thing, to bring that back, I think is kind of interesting too, especially as you mentioned too, and having a following as you do. And I don't like these terms. I think we need new terms to use for these things, because I don't think they're really articulate what that is. But festering on the negative is, in my mind, sometimes I go, is there a truth in there? Should I take a little bit of a longer look in the mirror, but not too long of a look?
Yeah.
Do you do that? Do you use it as a reflection?
I guess I do that. Yeah, for sure. It's like an involuntary reaction almost of like of introspection, I guess. But then you're like, it's just like anything. Like a director, essentially. Like you take in input, you filter it through the things, your filters, and then you decide to act on the things that you decide to act on. So like, I'm taking this input, like let me analyze it or whatever, see if it's something that I could improve on, and then do that or not do that. It's all about filtering things, I guess, and just seeing. Yeah, there's so one thing, my brother always made fun of me about this as well too, but apparently I used to like vocal fry a lot, which is something I didn't even know exist. I didn't even know what that meant.
What's that?
It's just when you like talk like you go like this, and your voice like kind of just is like all raspy and stuff. Like I would just do that. I would just not speak very confidently or loudly in the videos. And I got tons of comments about that like early on. And I've definitely tried to make like a more concerted effort after seeing all those comments of like, oh, maybe I just think of how to talk better in front of camera. But that was one that I could just remember that I did actually like,
took to heart,
and worked on. But like, I don't know.
Sometimes there's a truth in there that can help you, but I always feel like it's modular. It's like modules, The other day I had this idea that it would be so brilliant if the internet, by the use of this AI, whatever it is, would create a filter to reduce people's misinterpretations of other people's intentions. So your internet, basically, you open it up and you say, okay, I'm going to go browse the internet. I'm going to take in a bunch of knowledge today. And instead of people going like, racist comment this and bullshit this, you get to understand, okay, what are they saying? Oh, they have this weird insecurity. Okay, well, whatever. Or like they're like even the worst misinterpretation could then be translated to you so that you can perceive it with empathy.
People's point of view translation, essentially.
That would be
That's
amazing.
that essentially would solve all problems in the world, I think.
Huge problems via the internet.
I feel like a lot of the just strife in the world in general is just people not being on the same, not realizing they're kind of on the same page at heart.
Totally.
But they're just doing it differently.
It's all modules.
Because
it's modules of communication.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
It could be a really beautiful way to solve a lot of our problems, because all of the, I've been married to my wife for almost 16 years, 15 years or so. And we are slowly, every argument and every fight we have, which is seldom, but they happen. It's important to have in relationships because it's the blood source too. But then we kind of figure out, okay, what happened there and how to solve that. Oh, I was seeing this, but I was too insecure to actually say this. And anyways, but if this miscommunication. So what I mean by when you go on YouTube, it's when you look in the comment section, it's just full on garbage. It's utter, for the most part, some of it's beautiful. I see beautiful comments yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. I'm one person that I don't think I've ever made one YouTube comment just because I'm there's already a garbage heap here, and I'm just I'm just gonna look at it. Don't need to.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
And if I ever did, I would almost always, just because I'm sensitive to it, just give love, because it's why be additive? Don't be negative. And if I'm feeling I don't like it, then that's my prerogative to not like it, not for everybody to know that I don't like it. But anyways, that's ego based.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Well, yeah, I guess so. It's just, but I thought that would be such an interesting device because with the new Web 3 or potential Web 4, our interactions with the internet, if it created this filter. Have you seen that show, Black Mirror?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen that one where they block out people's faces? When they get blocked out, basically. I can't remember the episode, but
I think I've only seen the first season, but yeah.
I think this was season 2. Season 1 was great, but I can't remember because I know season 1 and 2 get kind of blended because it came over at different times. But it was a social thing. And then anyways, the person got blanked out in reality. And I thought that was so interesting. You don't want that, obviously, because that creates isolation and it only adds to the problem. But like you said, I think most people are agreeing on the same thing. This person that might have negative comment to you, it seems negative, but what he's saying is, I just want to hear you. And if that comment was translated through AI to you in your lens, I'm sensitive to this. And it said, I love your work. I just wish you were able to communicate a little clearly to me. And here's some suggestions. And you're ready. You're oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's actually useful feedback rather than you suck. I hate your face.
Yeah, you suck. Your voice sounds like you ate gravel for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. That's there's no tact in here. There's no grace.
Yeah, that is pretty cool though. I've actually never thought about that as a use of AI, but that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, instead of taking all the artists' jobs and recycling art, let's maybe fix our communication skills. That'd be cool. What's your thoughts on AI? It's a topic of great debate on everybody's terms.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is sort of social media is the echo chamber for society. And I think generative art is the echo chamber for art.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to see in a morbid curiosity way of just in 50 years, just AI just regurgitating the same art over and over again, what that is.
Yeah.
Is just white blobs or something just iPhone wallpapers. Yeah. That's the end game of AI art. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just, yeah, fair enough.
It's a full saturation machine. Yeah. It's just oversaturating, reducing value. But at the same time, it's also revealing value of people that are actually creating things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intrinsically. Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know if I have fully developed my thoughts of it, but I see it as both good and bad, essentially. Yeah. Just the most cop-out answer possible. But I literally do see very good benefits. But yeah.
You're using GPT to answer that question politically.
Yeah, well, let me have GPT translate that for you. I fucking hate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, I don't know if you have it, but there's definitely days where I'm just like, and then there's days like, oh, it's interesting. Okay. But there's definitely days where I'm just like, man, can this have happened once I was retired or something? Like, I still
yeah, I know.
It's workforce. Like,
yeah. I kind of am like, dang, if only this would have happened like a few years later.
Like, come on, guys, give me 10 years. Sheesh,
yeah,
let me retire.
Yeah.
I think about all of the generation that's coming up potentially. I think about that quite a bit, and I worry that, and this is a catastrophized thought to quote stoicism stuff, but it's a wasted thought that I shouldn't have, but I do it anyways. But I think about, if there's people that are listening to this as well, and you're younger and you're in school, or you're just out of school, or you're like in that bubble where you're insecure or unsure about these things. Like, I just really hope that you stay in the fight of expressing yourself and don't let these big, massive waves that feel like tidal waves like ruin your impression of what you want to be, because the world needs you. The world needs you. It needs me. It needs everybody. We need to be here. We need to show up and express ourselves. We don't have that. We have a real big problem. So,
yeah. I don't think you can take away people's desire to express themselves, and I feel if they aren't, like, yeah, I don't know.
Quotes.
Perfect quote.
Yeah,
I expressed myself so well there, just to drive that point home. This is why we need expression, people, so those profound moments can come out.
To go full circle, then, why do you make the content, the work that you make? Why do you make it right now? Do you know what that fuel is?
I mean, I think I make it because I just enjoy it. I don't know if that's like good or bad.
Should there be
or
more
what,
reason?
I guess not. I actually had one of those negative comments, literally one that I engaged with, because I do that sometimes.
You engage with the
but
negative comments?
Sometimes. Well, usually if I get a particularly funny bad comment, I'll pin it as the top comment.
Oh my god,
I just think it's funny. Amazing. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, like,
do you have
this guy's so fucking cringe" or whatever, and then I'll just pin it as the top comment.
Oh, amazing. Do you have an antibody, so your fan base attack that person then?
Kind of, that does happen, yeah. But I just think it's funny to like feel like. It's like the equivalent of like, you're in school and the teacher's like, "Oh, Jimmy, do you want to share something with the class?"
Yeah.
Like they say something. So I do that. But oh man, I don't remember where I was going with that now. The
content that you make it out of pleasure, and then the negative.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, yeah. And then so I responded to someone. I don't know, it was like a crazy long ridiculous comment about like, I shouldn't be making these videos because I'm like misleading people into buying. I don't. It was like I'm like corrupting people into thinking they need specific cameras and that cost money. Or I don't know. I was like, I just thought this camera was cool. Basically,
this is true.
But
you've convinced me to buy cameras. You.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Just kidding.
But basically, I was like, I just do this because I enjoy it. And then the dude's response was like, with great power comes great responsibility, or so. Okay, and bro. Like, I guess there is a kernel of truth to that one potentially, because it isn't just, now that I'm like a public voice, I guess, in like photography, that like people do, impressionistic people can take what I say as like, this is what you should do, but maybe that, people should think for themselves and not just think what I'm saying is.
Yeah, your responsibility isn't to think for others.
Yeah, I don't think that that's my responsibility. So, like,
it's not.
I make the things that I make because I think it's fun.
Yeah.
And I, like, literally just like setting up the lighting for this podcast, like, that was fun to me. Like, I just like doing that.
Yeah, I know.
And like, so I like, 3D printing stuff and 3D modeling stuff is super fun, and machining stuff is fun. I used to make lightsabers, like Star Wars lightsabers. I used to design them and machine them, and like painting and weathering.
The old lights from the old cameras. Because that's what they
some,
use.
but yeah. So I have, I could get into a whole rabbit hole about lightsabers.
I went down the fucking rabbit hole too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've like just like from scratch, like built my own like design that's not like from Star Wars or whatever. But yeah, like, you know, weathering props and making them, you know, I've like fantasized about working on sci-fi movie like prop departments with, you know, and love watching Adam Savage and all that kind of stuff. So like,
love Adam Savage stuff. So
I just love making things, you know.
But
and lighting is making.
There's a great responsibility with everything you make, though.
Yeah, that's true. I should just make sure that all the corners are soft so people don't poke their eyes out or something.
I think that's a case in point of a negative comment that's kind of out there a little too far, in my opinion. It's like, okay,
yeah,
it's like if you start putting that kind of weight on yourself, like I got to make everything like an insurance commercial, you know?
Yeah, that's like it's like
vanilla.
Yeah, it's like people are just like, just because I'm saying like, oh, I think this, even if it's a super expensive camera, oh, I'm thinking this $10,000 camera is cool. Yeah, I think that's what they were saying. They're like, you're basically implying that, you know, new photographers should buy like a $10,000 camera or whatever. I was like, I'm not implying anything. I just said this thing's cool.
You actually
and
just
that like if you have money, then buy it. If you don't, then don't. It's like I think the through line of my channel is it doesn't fucking matter what camera you use. It's literally like
I just get that as
any camera is good.
It's something that you're excited about. You literally just made a video. Yeah. Was it the X Pro 1 or which one was it?
The most recent one was, yeah.
And it was basically, we should talk about too, which I think is a fantastic topic, is there is a pinnacle, and I've heard this from cinematographers, even Greg and I've talked about it a little bit, I think, is things have hit peaks. Cinema's hit peak. Photography has hit peaked at certain ages. Some people would say it peaked during the Ansel Adams age, that kind of thing. Some would say there's different peaks that had happened from it. You mentioned in your video, if I recall, and I'm paraphrasing, please correct me, is that that camera still captures great pictures. The act of capturing pictures hasn't changed since that camera did a great job of doing it. And it did it. Yeah,
that picture, if I took a picture in 2010 and took the same one today with the same camera, the picture's going to look identical. Yes. Not like it rotted or something. Like it's still the same camera.
But there's no
That's
IBIS,
like, I get sometimes, there's no IBIS. It's funny because sometimes like I literally made a video called is the Sony A7 or should you buy the X100 in 2045 was the name of the video. Basically because people are always like, you know, it's like a video from 2018 and they're like, oh, well, it's 2024. Is the camera still good? I was like, well, fuck it. I'm making this review in 2045. So you literally can't tell me that you can't ask that question. Is it still good until at least 2045? But like, but that's like it's like, is the camera still good now? I was like, did the camera change since I made this video? Like, no, it's still the same camera.
In reality, it's the same for the most part.
Yeah. For the most part.
The sun shows up and does its thing every day. The same way.
It does.
I mean, the only thing is maybe pollutants and air particles, but I mean, light's pretty much the same for the most part, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
I love that about the sun's biggest lesson. One light.
Always.
One light, baby.
Just one light.
Think about all the beautiful shit that we've seen with that one light. More than we've seen with multiple lights, I'd argue to say.
Yes, I think you are correct.
Again, another fucking brain buster, you know? Like,
yeah.
But I love that about that video you made recently because it's a great point. I think I had originally started with like film cameras as a child with my grandparents. My grandma, she had a dark room in her closet that she had built. She was a craftswoman. She was awesome. And she introduced me to that. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's magic. You know, it just feels like magic. The first interaction you have with it. And then the eventually digital cameras and then the 5D Canon. That was a whole nother thing, of course. And then I shot with Sony for a while. And then my buddy Ozon introduced me to Fujifilm. He kept pushing me, get the Fujifilm. Like, it doesn't have all these specs that the Sony has. And then he was showing me your videos and I was like, okay, all right, let me try this shit out. And then I did. And I was like, holy crap. And then it's like, I think that at least the way I look at it, and I'm not sure if you feel the same, and I see this in a lot of photographers, is that you have to have equal parts unknowing, but then you have to have this submission to the tool. Then you have to have this like passion and this like love for the tool. And then this whole kind of thing happens where you just feel like this object's so special. And when you use it, special things happen. And then there's just kind of romantic quality that happens. And you either love the thing or you just don't. And it's either full of soul or it doesn't. What do you think that is, that implied nature that a human has on an object to capture something special? It's a big one. That's what she said.
Yeah. Yes.
So stupid.
Okay. How to... Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just like like... Yeah, I mean, I think just like, it's like a physical... There's like a physical aspect of using cameras to me that like I enjoy. You know, I kind of like the fidget aspect of it. I don't know if, you know, like... Yeah, and just certain objects, just the way they're designed, the way they feel, just, I don't know, just make me want to use them over other ones. And yeah, I don't know if it goes much deeper than that, honestly. Like, I don't like, there's just like a physical, like...
Would you be inclined with the object that you like to capture more brilliant things, or on the latter, would you not care? Because I love an object. So like if you, let's say you get in a car and it's a car that you find to be visual beautiful, and do you feel like that driving experience would then be beautiful or great? Or
yeah, for sure. I think it's a part of the entire process. I made a video a while ago about you know, why a cool camera makes you a better photographer, and there was a UX designer that commented, and then I think also like a mechanical engineer who commented as well too, about like, they're like, yes, like my work is valid too, like, because I'm designing the way that you interact with this thing.
Absolutely.
And like, that is the thing that I enjoy designing, and like in my design process of making the user interface, like I hope that you enjoy, you know, using the object, and that like, so I think that the way they're designed and the way that they look all kind of blend together into making the experience of the photograph better. You know, like I don't think that's crazy. And it again, if I'm not interested in the object, like I'm less likely to just take it with me. Like that's just a straight fact. Like I'm just not gonna use it. Like I literally just take my X100 with me because it's just, I just love it. It's just so cool looking, and I'm gonna use it because it's fun and tactile, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it stems from when I was a kid. I used to have like a Star Wars snow speeder toy, and I remember I used to take that thing like everywhere that I went, and it was just like the snow speeder design is super cool. Like I don't know, it's such a iconic, interesting design, and I don't know if that's like the psychology Dr. Thorpe bringing it out of me. But I have a feeling that this is essentially like my adult replacement of my snow speeder. You know, I just enjoy the act of, you know, having this object with me, and it's fun to use and enjoyable, looks cool. You know, kind of all that stuff wraps itself into making the images, and it just makes me want to use it, you know?
Yeah. But I think that there's this beautiful kind of relationship that you have with these objects that lends itself to, okay, now I have my cool thing and it's in my hand, and now I'm an extension of it. We've talked about this as well, as like, I was in Japan, I was texting you, I was like, my God, it's like when I look through the lens of my camera with the recipes that I built, it's like how I want to see the world.
Yes.
And it's my way of showing how I see the world to the world, which is a beautiful thing, you know? It's
yeah, I think that's like, Yeah, and I think my literal response to your text was basically like, that's like how I approach photography. It's like, I just like, when I see some weird, like I sent you the other day, or just the other day, I sent you like a picture of a red pole, like in some
marks.
bushes. Yeah, and I was like, I see it's like to most people that's just a red pole, but I was like, oh, like maybe that's some cool like weird thing. Like I don't even know what that thing is, but it's like weird and like I don't know. There could be like a story behind it. Like I like taking pictures that like make and then like maybe making up like a story in my head later of like what's going on in there. And I think the camera is a part of that process as well too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had a Sony A7 III, which I used so much. I think I shot 60,000 photos with that thing or something crazy. And it was great and it was awesome. And I really learned a lot with it. But then I got past a stage where I was like, these images are no longer inspiring me to continue taking photos in this beautiful way. And this whole concept of these like film simulations and creating custom recipes in the camera, which is so didn't really dawn on me, but it was weird because, I was told, or I learned that raw is the key and don't shoot anything but raw. And then now I'm shooting just JPEGs because I don't give a shit. I shoot raw and JPEG if I do care, because then I have the backup file, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But what I see is what I'm capturing, and what I'm capturing is the essence of what I want to see. And this is a beautiful relationship. Yeah.
But you're wrong, because it should be raw.
Yes.
You're
I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, you're literally just wrong. Your opinion doesn't matter.
My opinion.
No, I remember. I remember in the GFX video, actually, I talked about how the JPEGs look so awesome, and someone in the comments was like, "Why would you buy a $12,000 camera and shoot JPEG?" I'm like, I feel bad for you, because it's like, I'm literally like, if the images looks the way I want it to,
what are you gonna do?
Like, why am I bothering to do anything else?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a JPEG isn't an image file that you can do, use for print or what, Yeah. As long as you're not editing it, like, that file is as high quality as it ever needs to be.
It's a fantastic file. Yeah.
And it's like,
especially from that camera. That sensor is so huge.
And if I'm literally going to shoot raw and then just make it look like the JPEG, then why did I even shoot raw in the first place?
Yes, and this is a conundrum. I think also maybe potentially, maybe you can talk to this, as being a film photographer and understanding the film process, the development process, the chemical process, and how much latitude and change you can do later if you need to. But the way I'm looking at it is, with my film photography, my intention is to try and capture it as close as I want it to be, and slight modifications later, but trying to keep the intention there. And I feel that's what I get when I'm shooting currently with my current cameras. Is it's what I want right now, and that's it. And I'm not going to dwell beyond, So, but
again, it's a completely incorrect opinion.
Totally, it's an absolute, because I don't have the data, and then I don't have.
How dare you like the thing and then be done with it?
Yeah, it's like I can't even perceive the depth of 16-bit, but I need it. You know why? Because I'm an insecure person.
So bad.
Well, the downside of this relationship that you can have with this object is that it's almost like pornographic or something, where it's like this relationship becomes, I have this camera, therefore I'm good, or I have this camera, therefore. Yeah. And that's a downside spiral of it, which I've seen through other people.
And I guess that can be that one commenter's potential fear of my fetishization of cameras, is that I'm just making people think that they have to have that to be a good
to be satiated.
But
any good photographer knows that the tool finds them, I think, and that they unlock the tool themselves. Yeah.
And I mean, you literally, it's like such a weird dichotomy, because it's like literally the tool doesn't matter, but it also does matter.
Matters tremendously.
Because I literally can make any image with any camera, but I would just enjoy it more.
Yes. Yeah.
Doing it another way. And essentially, if all things are equal, then I will just take the one that I enjoy more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is all of these things are somewhat different. You have a disposable point and shoot film camera where you cannot compare that exchange to the XE4 or whatever camera you just mentioned, you know, the 100V. Is that the 100V you mentioned? Is that your favorite camera? Or the 6?
Yeah, the 6. Yeah. Or just any of the
hundreds, really. The fixed lens bad boys.
Those ones, yeah.
But there's a different exchange, right? So the camera and the gear does matter. And there's this connection to monetary money to this thing that is expected to be better because of these things. But I would argue to say that based on your intention, there's a point of diminishing returns that occurs. There's certain gear that if you bought it, it wouldn't make you a better person if your intention was not to be that version of yourself, you know?
There's definitely diminishing returns for sure.
Yeah. So it's like, I have friends that own like Reds with 6K, but they don't use it. It's like a paperweight. I'm like, why do you have it? Because Dave Fincher used it. And like, damn, their marketing was incredible. They totally got you to buy it 10 plus $1,000 cube.
I mean, I've literally turned down shooting on Reds and Alexas for just using Fuji's for stuff. It's like, whatever. I really don't care. I'd rather just use something that's lighter.
Yeah.
Like no one's really gonna know the difference.
But that people think so, you know, which is interesting too. And they want the thing that feels less risky, you know, like, oh, if I use this, then it'll unlock that thing.
Yeah.
I would say,
I mean, that's, I guess, the heart of just marketing in general. Yeah. Essentially getting people to, believe that this is the thing that will make them better.
Yeah. And to a certain degree, I would agree with that. But to a bigger part, more logically, I disagree with it because I think that the camera exists, but the artist unlocks the camera by intention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And traveling and experiencing the world and seeing it and being enveloped in those special moments, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say the same for like instruments and stuff too, you know?
Totally.
Musical instruments, you know? A good person can play amazing things on a shitty piano, but it's going to be better and awesome, you know? A more enjoyable experience and just everything will flow better, you know? If you're using something that's...
But if you want to play piano at home by yourself...
Yeah,
you could use a keyboard potentially, or you can have a smaller baby grand. But if your goal is to be to play with an orchestra or out in like a big museum, or not museums, but the big, stadiums or whatever, then you're going to need a different thing of equipment and you're going to need a whole other thing. So I think intention, this is one thing I've been trying to distill so much down, a lot of internal dialogue for myself and every creative person. They should really understand the intention of what they're doing. Intention is really difficult to get at because it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Do you know what your intention is with what you're doing? The answer is maybe.
Maybe.
Like, what's your intention when you get up to make your work? What do you think your intention is beyond just having a good time, or like, is there an intention in there?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe. So honest. I love it.
Like,
that's a big question.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I've like thought about it like directly. I'm kind of, like I said, you know, a lot of times it's the between the intuitive side and the analytical side. And I think when I make things, I'm very much on the intuitive side, and I don't know if like putting, like, not thinking through is the best way of describing that, but like, I don't know. It's very I would say making things for me is a very intuitive thing.
So it's satiating your curiosities. Is that your intention?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I don't know. It does just feel really good to make things. Like, it's just a very satisfying.
Something was not there and now it is.
Especially making physical objects. That's like incredibly satisfying because you literally just like manifest something into existence and then you can hold it.
Babies. Creative babies.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I'm now going to be thinking about heavily because I don't know if I've really put that question into my head.
It's a big one.
I appreciate that.
I'm both happy and I'm also sorry because you're going to be like, fuck, it's fucking 3:00. I can't stop thinking about what this intention is. But yeah, the intention reveals itself to you as well.
I mean, also like, again, I mean, my primary focus at the moment is YouTube, and that obviously started with a very typical intentions, I would say, of just like, I like cameras, I want to talk about them. It would be cool to get stuff sent so I don't have to buy cameras.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, then just realizing that it's like, oh, well, I shouldn't just be doing everything, my first videos were like exactly like the most typical YouTube video. I literally said, welcome back to, or like, hey, GXAC, you're back with another video. And I had never made any videos. So I literally started out with like the stereotype. I was like, maybe they'll just think I have a bigger channel if I just pretend.
With the first video.
He's back with the first video. So like, yeah, obviously like, it started out as a very typical endeavor. And now I'm realizing that like, there's no reason not to make it bigger than it is. So I think I'm still kind of like in the process of determining that intention. I just have the desire to make things, and I've always had the desire to make films and create stories and moods and interesting scenarios. And like, yeah, I think the intention is growth and exploration, I would say, maybe.
Yeah,
just kind of feeling it out
for a while too. As you're doing the act, you'll be like, what is the intention here? And the key for me is not to like force the intention or to like push it to expose itself. It's just like, all right, well, it'll reveal itself. The reason why I asked this is like, for a big part of my career, I was like, I want to be a feature film director. And I kept going like, why do I want to do this? And then, because I watched like George Lucas do it on these videos, or like Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, that's the role I want because I have ultimate power of expression. I want that role. And then once I started to unveil what this is, it's like, oh, I don't really want that. I'm not a politician. I don't play those games. I'm too honest and I can't play that sycophantic weird thing. Those guys are so good at being able to manage those worlds, and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to, I want to make my stuff by myself sometimes, or I want to make it with like 2 friends, and you can't make something huge. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be Star Wars level, just can't be. It's not possible. You need teams and hundreds of people and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, so what I realized my intention is expression, creative discovery, and finding that in whatever avenue. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be photography today. It could be painting tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. But that was it for me. So maybe that would have something to chew on.
Yeah. Yeah.
The intention's key though. The moment I locked in, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I kind of use it as a guide when I was going into other ventures. This is the intention. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah. I guess I've never sought to like define it specifically, but
maybe it's a bad thing to do that. I don't know. Could be bad.
Yeah. I don't know.
When you are out, because
seems to be good for you.
Well, I guess so. It seems
your work's awesome.
I'm not laying on the floor crying. So yeah, I think it just helps me because sometimes I don't deal well with the abstraction too much in it, and I already am very abstract. So like when I sit in it too much, I'm like, oh, it drives me nuts. So I need tangible things to lock onto. Remember, I mentioned like the unquantifiable aspect of this drives me fucking bonkers. So it's like if I can just latch on with intention, and they're pinnacles for me to like, okay, I can hold on to this fucking hole in the storm of chaos and tears and anger, which is the creative journey. You travel a lot. You go to China, you go to Japan. We both love Japan, which is great. In order to be my friend, we have to love Japan. So very important.
Yeah, that was in the interview. That was in like the pre-podcast
Question
interview.
1. Do you like Japan? Yeah. And you really love it. You understand it really like deeply too, which is fantastic too, which I love. And you travel a lot. When you're traveling, photography is like such a beautiful counterpart to travel. When you're traveling, you're going and experiencing new things. What brings your hand to reach for the camera to capture the moment? Do you know what it is?
I mean, kind of like going back to that, like the picture of the red pole in the bush, and kind of thinking of like, I just kind of like see things as if they were like, there's some story here that I might not know what it is, but it just feels like there could be something, more to this thing that I'm looking at, or I don't know. A lot of things like, I mean, I'm always looking for interesting light. That is one of the first things that I would look for in like a practical sense, I guess, is just like really interesting light that captures my eye, be it like a interesting light fixture on a wall or something that's casting like an interesting pool of light somewhere, or just interesting and weird, kind of out of the norm stuff, which I guess is why I love going abroad so much, because it kind of like puts you back into your childhood curiosity, where everything in every corner is interesting, and it. But yeah, I would say I look for, I would say a lot of my photography is almost like urban landscape. I think if I were to define it, because people always ask you to define that stuff, and I have to think about it more and more every time someone asks me, and I don't know the answer. So I keep thinking about it. I'm like, that is kind of like a lot of it. Like, just like, yeah, just finding interesting things that feel like there's a story behind it to me. And if that story is just something that I make up in my head, or something that actually looks like there's, something happening in reality with that thing. But yeah, or, that's kind of what I look for, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say it seems like you're searching for films, like frames from a film.
Yeah.
Your influence from cinema comes through your photography, I feel like.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of, because it's like, yeah, cinematography and doing it on a high level is so, it like you said, it's like a team effort, and it's not something that's easy to do in any stretch of the imagination. It's like actually like incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
and especially to get stuff that's like really good.
Yeah, you can get a nice locked-off shot, but move the camera and let's talk business now.
Yeah, so like photography is kind of like the easy cinematography.
Yeah.
That's like less
There's
effort,
photographers out there,
but like you get a lot of
screaming right now. Which is true though. I mean, if those photographers should try to be cinematographers, and let's talk then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you showed me one very interesting photographer recently. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the one who did like the crazy elaborate setups for like a single shot.
Gregory Crutzen.
Yeah. So that obviously, I mean, obviously what I'm saying could potentially be pretty like overgeneralization, but like to me, like I'm still using all the tools of cinematography, taking a photo, even if it's something I'm not lighting, because I'm, a lot of times I'll, obviously my, like, I pick like a fluorescent light on a ceiling in some weird dark dingy room or something somewhere that I'm taking a picture of, and that becomes my key light. So like then I'm like adjusting the exposure based off of that light specifically, and then you're moving your camera angles. You're like, okay, well now that's the light that I have to light my scene. So now I'm that's the one locked variable of this cinematography setup that I'm doing, and now I can change what I can change, like my angle, the aperture, how what if I'm looking and seeing reflections and stuff like that. So it's still like it scratches the itch of cinematography, but without
the crew,
without the crew, which is fun. I mean, that's what, like, one of the reasons why I even got into film and, commercial work and all that stuff in the first place. So I used to do like theater in high school, and I did like the technical side of the theater. And like, I just love the like summer camp aspect of like being with all the crew and all that stuff. Beautiful. So like, I actually really love that on, working on it. Oh. Yeah, even if it's working on a movie or even a commercial, like working on a commercial essentially feels exactly like working on a movie. Like it's the same from like a crew standpoint, it's very similar. You know, you're all, except you're only there for a day instead of like a month every day. But yeah. So I mean, I love all that, but like, it is hard. You know, it's not easy thing to like schedule, and there's obviously like whole jobs of people whose job it is to manage all, you know, the logistics and all that stuff. So like, photography is kind of like the like Nintendo DS or Nintendo Switch of like of cinematography. It's like the portable one that I can do on my own.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true, and it kind of
fun.
like gets you just go out there and do it and see it. Do you walk a lot? I tend to walk miles and miles, and
yeah.
Walking is, and I love that. Isn't that cool? It's like normally I probably wouldn't do that, but because photography just gets me to explore. Because I know right around that corner there's going to be a photo there, and it's like, and my buddy Anthony, we call it fishing. It's like we're just going fishing, you know, like we gotta, you gotta keep casting the line out, and then you capture, you're like, fuck, and then sometimes I don't know,
it's just so satisfying.
It's the most satisfying. It's one of the most beautiful arts. I kind of came back into it because I would travel and I'd get super angry and anxious when I'd travel because I'm like I couldn't expel creativity. Because I'm always wanting to be creative. My wife's like, dude, you gotta like chill out. Because I couldn't. I was like, I need to do something.
I need to create things.
Pretty much. That's how bad it is for me. Because it is a total drug. And eventually, photography came about. And then, I usually do it completely solo. Because I like the freedom of just full on advance in all directions. Yeah. But sometimes I'll do it with like a friend. And it's like, especially if we're on the same wavelength, it's really fun because you're like, oh, and then we end up basically getting the same shots. I'm like, get out of here! This is my shot. You know, like this is my fish.
Yeah. It's always really pretty. I usually tend to dislike big organized photo walks because like 50 people are all taking the same photo. But like when I was in Japan last time in February, with my friends Dave, Casper, and Jonas, we just like went out at night and we're just like, it would just be like, we'd like descend on a location and then everybody would just like splinter off. And then, you know, we'd be like, oh, where'd Casper go? It's like, I don't know. And then they're just like, you just see them like getting awesome. I don't know. It's super fun. It's cool. For sure.
It's kind of cool. It's almost like you're seeing yourself in another location, seeing that. And then like the thing I love about it, because I don't shoot with many people myself. I just like to go out seldomly because I also do a lot of internal dialogue, a lot of thinking. Do a lot of like meditating, walking. It's a kind of a weird act. I get all this like stuff, and then by the time I come back, I'm like, what the fuck happened there? Okay, I'll see you later, and I just put it down and check the photos later. I'm like, wow, that was cool. Or but sometimes the synesthesia thing happens where the colors and the sense of things all hit me when I see the colors of the photos again. And it's so fun though. Photo taking is just the best. I do love the friction-free aspect of it though, especially when you have like such a small camera. Like this little XE4 is just like such a little banger, dude. That's my favorite camera.
I love it. Yeah.
The object.
And like that's not But for sure.
But there's so many. You own what you said, I think in one of the interviews, 60 some odd cameras or something like that. It's a lot of cameras, man. Yeah. And all on top of that, you have all the lenses for like different bodies and stuff too. So
I don't know how many lenses I have, but there's definitely more than 65 photos.
Yeah, you've gone opposite to me. I have this thing where if I don't use an object for like 6 to 12 months max, I just get rid of it because it's like it'll depreciate. I'm not using it. I'd rather somebody else love the object and use it.
Yeah.
But you just kind of take them all on. And you're like, okay.
They just keep piling up. I mean, I probably will do that at some point. I'll have like a reverse midlife crisis and sell them all or something. But yeah, I don't know. They keep piling up. I mean, a lot of them are just like random ones that I've had that I probably should sell. Like that aren't all like the ones that I super love. That's just like I have like a box of them somewhere of just like the random garage sale finds of stuff before I realize I should be much more specific with things that I get just so I don't have a bajillion of them. But that didn't work out too well. So, but yeah, I have noticed with a couple things that I've started having like a collector mindset, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but just a couple of things that aren't super expensive at the moment, like the Contax G cameras.
No, it's too expensive.
The Contax P camera. It's really rare. You probably won't find it.
It was a limited run of one.
Yeah, the Contax G camera, that one sucks. Don't buy that one.
That one sucks. No one wants that one.
But yeah, I literally like have every lens that they made for them now, and the two bodies. And I just like, it's like affordable enough that it's like I can completionistly collect all the things for it. So I'm like almost there. I have like one more.
This is a film camera. This one.
Yeah.
35
it's from. Yeah, it's essentially like an X100, but a film camera. It's like sort of a rangefinder, but not really. It's autofocus and all electronic. But they're really beautiful cameras, and the lenses are incredible, and they're not expensive because they're autofocus only. You literally can't manual focus the lens on the lens. So that's like one of the reasons that they're cheaper, but I think they're awesome. But yeah,
that's cool. I mean, that we talked a little bit about peaks. We didn't really get into it too much, but I feel like I've seen it in automotive where certain cars and brands have peaked at certain ways. Like Mitsubishi made the Evo, and I feel like that was one of their pinnacle vehicles that was just so outstanding in my mind. And then, they need to pay the bill, so they make SUVs and so on and so forth. There's certain eras of cars that did that too. And I think with cameras, and they have certain peaks as well. Digital took a long time, I think, to get to where it needed to be. And then it got there. And now I think it's just getting better in certain ways, but it's gotten to the point where you can't even tell, Would you agree? Yeah. But it's just people wanting to sell the thing again. But it's like,
I think we need another mid-sized crossover that just looks like, any car.
Yeah. We need.
They all look exactly the same.
Yeah, they all fit in the same like safety regimens. It's like your thing has to fit this and this and that and this much, space, and there's not much design freedom that goes beyond that, And there's peaks to these things.
Yeah. I don't know if if I'm allowed to ask you a question in this thing, man. But I have so when we were in Japan, we had like a presentation with the Fujifilm design, like camera designers, like the dude who designed the X100.
So cool.
Which was super cool, except for all the
kiss on the lips. They like that.
I did do karaoke designers with them afterward, and it was super fun. That is a chat. I'm pretty sure that's like a thing you're supposed to do right when you meet someone. There, just kiss them right on the mouth. So I one of the questions I asked them, and I also want to ask it to you about cars. But I asked them, and they didn't. Basically, I asked them, like, do they get design inspiration and put it into cameras from things outside of cameras? So like they said like not really that much, but like on the GFX 100 the one I lent you, they did the grip texture is actually like a traditional Japanese pattern.
The Bushido, or what's it called?
It's called Bishamon.
Bishamon, that's it. Yeah.
But I thought that was cool. But I was just curious, like, if like there's designs in cars and stuff that you design into cars that you're getting inspired from that aren't related to cars. Like, I don't know, you saw like a light fixture or something. I don't know. Like things that are literally unrelated to cars that are factoring themselves into that, designs for cars.
I almost always try to look at the outside world more than the car world for inspiration. I try to. I look at like tanks and military stuff, but then I also look at nature stuff. Like, I think it was Gordon Murray that might have mentioned it, or one of his interviews where he was designing the McLaren F1, but I believe it was him, or it could have been the one that preceded him, the designer. He was using stingrays and manta rays in the organic qualities of beautiful aquatic life to design the flow and patterns for the McLaren. And I remember as a young person designer seeing that, going like, oh, you can do that. And then once I heard that from that person, I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Then, so anytime I design now, usually my reference will be like, yeah, a light fixture on a wall, or like Carlos and I, my buddy Carlos, who I do Make Haste Corp with, the car projects that we do together. We designed this steering wheel that went in the Celica redo that we did. And I was deeply inspired by teenage engineering design.
Yeah.
I was like, what if teenage engineering designed the steering wheel?
That's cool.
That's a cool brief. And we give ourselves, like you do, you give yourself your own logical fictional briefs. And then from that, you have this really cool, the story tells you all the design decisions that you should be making, you know? And that was, so I almost always pull from the other world.
That's cool.
Because creativity is cross-pollinating ideas, you know? It's like, it's like you merge them all together. You know?
I was a little surprised that they didn't have much, and I don't mean to like say anything bad about them, because I literally was hanging out with Masazumi and he's like super awesome, super cool dude. But like, I was surprised there wasn't more of an answer for getting outside inspiration on the camera side, other than the grip on that specifically, which is kind of interesting because like a lot of cameras look very similar and they don't, the design hasn't really evolved from that one specifically. I think has it was like going pretty cool. It like did some different things, I think, with like the angled top plate and stuff on it. But I think camera designs have been very similar and restricted to film photography, since they're all still kind of based around the shape of that was made because it had to have a roll of film in it.
Yeah.
It would like Sigma actually has some really weird designed cameras, like the DP Quattro.
Oh my god, I
like
love
they just look
that.
so weird.
Yes. Is that the cube one? It would the square one, right?
It's like a trapezoid cube. I don't know. It's like a weird. It's a weird shape.
There's a Sigma that they designed. I was like,
Sigma DP Quattro. It's like, it's such a strange looking.
I really want to. There's one camera system that they made that I guess this is,
or maybe it's not the DP Quattro. It's
DP1.
Well, that one is weird looking too.
Yeah.
That wasn't the one I was thinking about.
I really admire that company for taking the risk and doing these interesting designs. Truly. Yeah.
Oh, the SD Quattro H was what I was thinking of. But both of those are good examples of cameras that are just like weird looking.
I like that.
It's just a little strange. Yeah.
This is interesting. Oh yeah, that's cool. It kind of does this weird like pop down thing.
Yeah, which is like it's so random, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to see camera companies like take more risks with like the way that they're designed and the way they look. I think they could look more interesting.
We got to do something together and make something fun. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, Sigma.
I would love that.
Man, if you could put the soul and body of what this camera gives me, because the soul of this thing is just amazing. You put that in the industrial kind of block camera style that these Sigmas have. I mean, I'm sold, man. I mean, not because this one already has it. It has a lot of, but I think you mentioned that the designer that had worked on this or designed these series of cameras was influenced by the cameras that he saw on his parents' shelf. I think you mentioned.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is
that's
super
what they were
beautiful
saying
too. Which is a cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I think. Yeah, let's design a camera.
Yeah, let's design a camera.
It's so fun. I'll just take one apart and just put it inside this new design and 3D print it, and then
I'm in.
Get someone to manufacture it.
That'll be a really fun project because I love design, as you know, and I love industrial stuff. And like to my mind, in my opinion, there's no limit other than your own curiosity when it comes to design. You can solve anything if you can think it. And I think like our affinity for these things, these objects, but finding this romantic thing that's in there, you can totally do it. And it could be this thing like, oh, it just feels so good. Like, look at the way the edge fits in your palm and like and how you hold it. And I'm sure, I mean, I can really tell with these guys when they make these things, if I pull this thing off and I don't have this little thing, it's quite limited and in regards to like how you would actually hold it, but it is light, you know? So these are both quite similar. Yours has a little bit of a bump where your actual hand would reside. This one doesn't have it, which was a departure from the XE4 or 3, I think, which the XE3 had a little bit of a grip thing here. But anyways,
I don't know, it's just interesting. Yeah, the idea of designing something like that is really enticing. And I think like one thing, and I've mentioned this to you before, but the thing I think you do so well with car designs is like the things that make cars look cool and you like amplify them essentially.
Oh, thanks.
Like that's what I've always known. That's like, as you know, what drew me to your stuff. Well, I don't even remember when I followed you, but it was a super long time ago. It's like, I don't know, you get like the wheels and tire, like everything around that like just looks so awesome. And like you just like get like why that, and it's like something I can't really put my finger on because I'm not a car designer, but like I know that, yeah, it's just like those things that I know look cool on real, you know, cars that I've seen, like you essentially take those things and amplify it. And I think I have a decent grasp on the things about cameras that I think look cool and could be amplified. And I know that obviously you could do a much better job of that than me.
I don't know about that. That would be a really good creative.
It would be fun though.
Creative design baby from that. I appreciate that. Yeah. I basically reduce and remove all of functionality from a car in order to make it cool, which is stupid. So yeah, because like the most effective car is the one that's to be used and driven, but that's the thing that you drive on a daily basis, which it could be a Tesla or SUV or whatever. I have a Raptor. You have an FJ Cruiser, which is it's also very quirky, very beautiful. And there's a lot of them in Japan, which I loved, and they're all pristine, which I freaked out about because like
I love how you like every day you were just sending me like another picture of an FJ.
It's another FJ. That's awesome. Yeah, well, I know you got major FOMO when I was out there because I was just like, I was full on in adventure mode, and I was like, look at all these, because I would sometimes send you random photos. You're like, fuck. I'm like, I got drunk here and I ate this freaking yakitori there. Like, so much stuff. Yeah. But where was I going with it? Oh, just removing functionality. But it's really, truly amazing. I kind of got a glimpse at like the homologation aspect of actually taking a car that's from like a design core and then actually making it public worthy, which is roadworthy and road legal and all these crash members. And it is the fact that a car is actually made and put to production and people drive it's pretty mind boggling considering what it has to do. It has to be safe and consumer worthy and functional and think about what a combustion engine is. It's just small explosions.
Yeah, that's like the craziest part.
It's crazy.
Literally just driving a machine powered by explosions.
Yeah, small fossil fuel dinosaur bones, basically. You know, I know this too because when I had my NSX, we had rebuilt the engine. And by we, I mean my mechanic Nick. He rebuilt the engine. There's only a certain amount of people that can actually do this through and through. So he was a technician, an Acura technician, and he had the whole engine into pieces. And I would go over there and document it because I was like really curious. And I was like, when am I ever going to see this? You know? And it totally ruined my head because when it took a year or so to get it all done and figured out and sorted and back together. And when I would drive it before that, I would just drive it super hard. I wouldn't give a shit. Yeah, I'm just. But when I was thinking about the like, little washers and the little things and the pressure seals and all of these. And it ruined me for understanding, like to enjoy it at like high level. You know, I wasn't able to just be like, yeah, whatever, because it's crazy. It's little explosions that are happening. You know, crazy revolutions, and they're spinning these cranks, and it's like, yeah. But there's a soul and a core to that, you know. So it's really interesting. But yeah, yeah. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
there are marvels of engineering for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
It is truly crazy, especially with that car too, the legacy behind it. Because if I understand it correctly, based on the stuff that I studied, is that Honda took their top 100 or so engineers and they hand assembled, each one of them was hand assembling an aspect of that car.
Oh, wow.
So Honda as a company, and it's just, if you understand Japanese culture and stuff, like the essence. Like this last trip, I was telling my wife, I think I every time I go to Japan, I get to see a little bit more of it that I love. And I distilled this latest one down to everything is considered. Feels like everything is considered there. Everything. Yeah. It's not like that's not accidentally there. That's like really considered. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that for sure.
It totally helps my OCD and everything. It's just great. Like, this is great. I can just like relax and enjoy this.
It's so good. want to go back.
Yeah. We'll have to do a Fuji Boys trip or something. Yeah.
Definitely doing that.
It's also so photogenic there. It's just like you just kind of put your camera up and shoot somewhere, you know? An interesting thing we talked about are differences in shooting, which I thought was cool, is that you shoot primarily in aperture priority. You want to talk about like how and why you shoot that way?
Yeah, I just do it because it's faster for me anyway. I don't want to fiddle with the dials. It's just another step that takes longer. So I also have it in auto ISO as well too, because I don't really care what ISO the camera picks these days, since cameras are so good in low light. It really doesn't matter. And I always add grain anyway, so it's not that it's already going to be grainy, so it doesn't matter what ISO it picks, in my opinion. So yeah, I much prefer the aperture priority life, because then you're essentially just you're just changing the exposure compensation dial. There's just one dial, and it's like, do I want the image to be brighter or darker? And then like, yeah, and the aperture priority dials are usually easier to adjust while not looking at the camera, for me anyway. So that's why. So I guess I'm still adjusting a dial, but and then obviously setting the aperture. But yeah, I don't mind it being on auto ISO or auto shutter speed. So yeah, and then obviously there's certain types of photography that isn't as possible in aperture priority. Like you can't really shoot long exposure-y kind of stuff as easily, and more as like precisely with the exposure. So if I was going to do something like that, I probably would put it in manual, but it's either manual or aperture priority, but aperture priority like 99% of the time. So
it's really cool. I mean, it's cool because I never even used that dial, the exposure compensation dial. I've never used it on any camera. So when you explained it, I was like,
did you try it? Did you try it yet?
I haven't tried shooting it because I haven't gone out to do anything shooting. Usually I just like assign a day where I'll go out and shoot, and I would flex that. That's actually on my list to just shoot the way you shoot for a day and just be like, how do I like this? Like,
yeah, I'll be interested
to feel it.
Your thoughts.
But I'm like such a manual daddy, it's like manual everything.
I mean, if it works for you, there's no reason to not do it. But like, to me, it just is faster. And that's
a core
better
digital.
To capture quick things.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, even if it's like, there's other times where I'd use manual. Like if sometimes shooting at night is easier in manual, but like you can still, if you still just have the meter set, you can just point it at a light source and then meter off that light source and then hold the shutter down halfway. But sometimes, like, if it was like a concert or something, shooting like a concert, I would probably shoot it in manual just because the lighting is pretty consistent. And then you don't have to worry about the shutter, worrying about having to meter off a light source for the aperture priority to get the shutter speed you want. It would probably be easier to just set a manual one. But yeah, for the way I work, the aperture priority is the go-to.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because like I find that one thing that usually stimulates my photography is switching the mode that I do. So the way I like to work, and you might be the same, is I like to remove the camera completely so that I'm just present with the moment of a capture. And that takes practice. But then once you get too much in a practice state, you become stagnant. You basically repeat. So I like to switch it to them. That's what I love about these recipes, because I'm like, I'm getting a little stagnant. I'll shoot maybe like 5 shots of, I don't know, like a certain recipe. And I'm like, okay, black and white now. And I have a real good Tri-X simulation, a recipe. And then by seeing it in black and white, I get inspired. I'm like, oh, it's high contrast. I'm starting to see shapes rather than colors. And then I'll switch back to a Portra 400 and I'll just jump through that. And it's been really fun though. That's at least the thing that's been stimulating me to be like super adventurous. That's why the photos I was showing you when I came back was like, oh, what the fuck? I was like doing all kinds of weird stuff because I was just letting all kinds of weird stuff happen. But also Japan and Tokyo in general is a very serendipitous place, as we've talked about too. It's very romantically serendipitous, that place. Yeah.
Weirdly serendipitous.
It's got such a wild energy. So many souls. So many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing though. But I love that aspect of photography and that curiosity of just going out there and doing it. Do you prefer urban landscapes over, say, nature or portraiture or human subjects? It's
I don't know, not necessarily. I mean, I do. Like I said, I just went on a backpacking trip, and spent 3 days like on an island that's all woods essentially, and I mean, that's fun too. It's definitely harder, I'd say, especially in a place that isn't just like Yosemite or where you just like point your camera and everything looks amazing. Yeah, it's harder in like the woods of northern Michigan to get like interesting compositions and stuff. Yeah, and I do like taking pictures of people. I'm just like kind of not as outgoing to like randomly get portraits of people and chatting with them as much, but I take a lot of pictures of my friends. Just because they're
there.
They're locked in subjects for me that won't complain that I'm taking their photo. So but I do really love taking pictures of people too. Especially with, I prefer 35 millimeter is probably my favorite focal length. So I do like getting the environment in the shot with like a portrait or something of people.
How did you discover
but
that?
I do think
that focal length.
The X100 actually. Yeah,
that's how you see the world. That's how you want to see the world.
Yeah, basically. Like I got the original X100 like right in like 2010, so not too far after I started photography in general. And that kind of was just so nice being able to take that thing around, and it was just a perfect focal length for capturing what's happening as well as like focusing in on a subject. You could kind of it's an easy lens to tell a story with, I think.
Yeah, you have an X-Pan too. I'm sure everybody's jealous of that as well. That's kind of like having the very wide version of a 35, right? Because what's the equivalent to what it kind of shoots?
The X-Pan, it's like a 22 millimeter.
But it feels odd because it's cropped almost. It feels like it's cropped.
Yeah, it's like it's a 22 that you cropped to 65 by 24 essentially. Yeah. But yeah, that's also fun. Like that camera is so much fun just because I'm just obsessed with the CinemaScope.
Yeah, that would be the camera we would make a camera that would be a digital version of that.
Yeah, that needs to be digitized. That needs to exist.
Yeah, it needs to exist.
A fixed lens so badly
with that setup. With the soul and core of these Fuji babies. Yeah. That sounds like a good one.
All right.
Nice and chonky, but just right.
Yeah. just the perfect amount of chonk. Yeah.
Just not too much chonk.
Yeah, that camera's a little chonky. It also has a crazy shutter sound.
Yeah, and it's also
just loud.
All the electronics and stuff, and it's only going to get age basically. So yeah.
Yeah. They also had like a really bad paint finish on it. Yeah. It's like titanium, and then but the paint over top of it basically like doesn't adhere at all. Yeah, and it gets chips off really easily. Yeah.
Which kind of looks cool, but it does. But the core essence, the aspect of the photo, the photos that thing captures, it just feels like it's what's cool is it doesn't feel natural. I think that's what's kind of fun about it. It feels surreal almost because our eyes don't see that. It feels like a movie. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It feels like a movie.
Yeah.
And that's
which is beautiful, but it's not anamorphic though. It's spherical.
Correct. It's spherical but cropped. Yeah.
It's beautiful too.
Yeah, and it's actually wider than like CinemaScope,
because Ben-Hur was like 2.76 to 1 or something like that, and I think
I guess I don't know the actual like aspect ratio, like the simplified ratio, but it's 65 by 24 is the dimensions.
Big boy.
But it's wider than 2391.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
239 to 1 became somewhat popular for a while. It's interesting to see square format come in too.
And I really like using that but I also like cropping my images to anamorphic. So it's those aren't compatible on YouTube, really. So you can't do both in the same thing. So, but I love it. I mean, I'm so happy that cameras like the the XH2S and like the Panasonic S5 II do like 4x3 and 3x2 recording.
Yeah, for anamorphic.
It's just fun.
So when you de-squeeze it, you can get a good wide boy out of it. Yeah.
And just shooting it like that without even shooting anamorphic is just fun too. Like, I'm sure you saw The Lighthouse, but like that movie made me want to shoot with my like Hasselblad so badly.
Yeah.
I mean, even though that's 4x3 and not 1-to-1 like Hasselblad, but it's just like, I feel like framing. Yeah, I guess I like framing the most ridiculously wide, anamorphic aspect ratio, panoramic things, but also like square format is really fun.
Same.
It's like a lot easier. I think it's the easiest format to like compose interesting things on.
A square?
It just like lends itself really well to like composition. I don't know.
Square
I think it's just like square. The square format. I just always find of like, oh, I like that, like looks cool and works really well with. Yeah, I just find like a perfect fit for a composition better with square for some reason.
Well, it makes sense because the ratios are even, so you can create compositions inside of it that are even. But if you're shooting elongated rectangles, which is like aspect ratios similar to like cinema or anamorphic, then you got to really pick or choose. So you're going to be centered, but then you have a ton of negative space, or you're going to go right weighted or left weighted, or Dutch angles were invented, I think, because of this kind of conundrum that was occurring in the actual object, the image object window, which is interesting too. The
Dutch angle.
Yeah, they gotta love the Dutch angle. I shot a lot of square stuff. I think I was telling you too, when I was in Japan, I was like, I never shoot square ratios, so I'm gonna shoot for 2 days just only square. And I was like, wow. And I was doing weird things where I've never shot a camera like that. I've always shot it like this.
Oh, okay.
Always.
Nice.
I was like,
that's interesting.
I started doing.
So you never go portrait orientation,
I never really did ever. So I was like shooting portrait all the time. I was like, this is so much easier. I just go, pow. And then if I'm shooting square, it doesn't really matter. So, because the image is the square, so it doesn't matter where. And because what was happening is I had my hat because it was bright out, and I would just, and then my hat kept moving. So I was like, so I did this, and my hat wouldn't have to move. So. Like little weird things, but if you're shooting, say 400 shots a day or something, you're constantly bothering yourself, So, but yeah, super fun. I love this stuff. What's a lesson that you've learned recently that you fall back on or think about continually? Something like, oh, yeah, that's something that like a good lesson that you learned.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is like a super new one, but like just not half-assing things. Like if you're going to do something, like try to do it with like quality, That's one that I've thought about recently again, And that's why even like usually even my normal random like Zoom calls, I usually try to do some sort of lighting, except I didn't the last couple times with you, but we've gone past the point of the half-assing it apparently. But I don't know. It's just, if you're going to do something, like try to do it right or do with it well,
intention.
Yeah.
Quality is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's just because I went to Japan 3 times last year, and
you're just like
burned into my head.
No half stepping. Yeah, I'll be out in my shorts. Yeah, like everything there is, and there's dudes in suits, and I'm just like, I suck. I'm a horrible human being. It's so hot there. My body can't deal with that.
Oh yeah, that's so hot.
Crazy sweat glands, man.
Crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, I got some sort of like Nordic genes or something. I'm not designed to be in the tropics, the Earth. Japan is such a wonderful place to teach.
Yeah, they definitely do a lot of stuff with intention there for sure.
Yeah,
that you just notice like little details of stuff, and you're like, oh, they like that's so awesome that they like decided to do that or like took the time to do that. Like it's cool. It leaves a good impression on me. So
yeah, it makes me want to be a better person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on my most best behavior of all time when I'm in Japan. Unless I'm drunk, then I'm just not in good behavior anywhere. But I'm actually still in good behavior. I
guess even Japanese people let pretty loose.
Of course, we all do.
Too,
yeah,
so.
we got ripped. My wife and I got ripped in a couple rad bars, and it's just like not ripped. We're just fucking throwing up, but it was like really good times. You're just enjoying the beauty of being alive and the joy of being amongst great company and like unleashing new friendships. It's just like, does it get better than this? It really doesn't. Yeah.
That's so fun.
It is the best. That's why we do it. That's why bars exist. It exists for that feeling. You know?
Yeah.
I also noticed too, there's like, I mean, it's something I tend to do when I travel is I compare a lot, which I know is comparison is bad to do. But I compare a lot, especially America. And I'm like, man, they don't do this in America. They don't do that. Yeah. And then one of the things that I notice is like when you get to like bars or around bars or that environment here in America, there's this weird machismo, like, I'm going to beat you up. And there's all this like weird negative macho shit. In Japan, there's none of it. I didn't experience any of it. And I never have all the times I have. When people are drunk, they're just like, they're either passed out or they're laughing and being loud and silly. And then that's it. There's no weird, like macho, weird energy. And I just like, man, I love that. You know, there's no need for that kind of energy. It's just, there's no need for it.
And very friendly. And like also shy to speak English, but we'll do it if you interact with people. Cause I've noticed a lot of times that like, you're like, oh shit, like, should I try talking to people? But then you like realize like, yes, you should. They're just like not wanting to be the one to initiate it, but they like all are like totally down to like chat,
practice English
and, like,
with you,
try to hang out.
I'm trying to practice my Japanese and they love, I know that everybody I interacted with, they really love when my wife and I would speak Japanese or try to speak Japanese. My wife is much better because her mom is Japanese. So she has a better comprehension of it, but yeah, and they just, I mean, I have tattoos. I'm a tall white guy walking around. So me saying like daisuke and all these like, and you know, these little silly kid style stuff. Like, yeah, this is awesome. But
yeah, that's super fun. That is like one of the reasons I'm interested in like language learning, basically. Like I super into this YouTuber called Lao Shu. He was a dude from like Ohio. He actually died recently, which is crazy.
It's a bummer.
That dude literally spoke like 50 languages. It's insane. Wow. And like he would call it like leveling up. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go get some. He's like, he would call like people who you could speak their language. He would call them XP, and he's like, oh, I'm about to go get some XP. But like, points? I don't know, like, like experience points, like from a video game kind of thing. Like, but he like, I don't know, just like watching his videos, it's like so like just the reactions that he gets from people, like when like. I mean, because he was like a 6'5" black dude from like Ohio, and then he would just be like talking to his people, and sometimes they would be like a little nervous or whatever, and then he's like, and then he just like breaks out like completely fluent like Chinese or like he could do Chinese, like Russian, Polish, Korean, Japanese, like Arabic. Whoa. Like I don't know, it was insane how many languages he was like.
Amazing with that,
like that's insane polyglot. Yeah, like it was nuts. Wow. But like always like seeing the reactions, he was saying it was like almost like addictive to like to like elicit these like really awesome interactions and reactions from people, and that is definitely inspires me if I like go out and try to speak Chinese or Japanese or something, and then like I was able to do it. It like gets me like pumped up. Like it's like, oh, this is like awesome.
And it's very
like,
encouraging too. Yeah. And the culture, at least for me, when I'm in Japan, they really encourage it for outsiders to speak their language. It shows respect that you respect the culture and that you're willing to learn and absorb. Yeah, Monica and I, we're going to definitely spend a pretty big part of our latter years in Japan, I think, because we just love it so much. We have a true affinity for it. I like to split the year between Japan and maybe Italy or Europe and maybe a little America. Yeah.
I need to get back to China too. China's also super fun.
Not Ben.
And I speak more. I'm better at Chinese than I am in Japanese, so it's I can do more stuff.
That's wild
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you love about?
I would say
what do you love about China? I mean, China's huge.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. And when I went from China or Japan to China on the same trip, like I went to Japan for a few days and then we went to China. It definitely seems, because Japan can be very like rules heavy, and there's a lot of like formality, and like you're like, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk right now, or if this is like a social faux pas because like everyone's being so quiet, or you go to like a old restaurant or something. And I don't know, China just feels a lot more casual, and it's like, I don't know, it's like very comfortable in that sense, is like that like everyone, I mean, not to say that everyone isn't like friendly, but like, I don't know, in like China, I mean, I guess they do this in Japan too, in a lot of Asian countries, but like, you know, to like refer to somebody, you'll call them brother or sister. Like that's like just how you like any random person, or like an older person, you know, you call them like auntie or uncle. And it's like a very like family, like it feels like everybody's like a part of your family. Yeah.
Communism.
So it's like
potentially like the.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's been along for
prior,
since before communism, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's
the oneness of it.
Yeah, it's very everybody feels very like together, and yeah, it's nice, and it's
looks super photogenic.
It's
too.
fun. It's fun to explore, for sure.
Especially if you love,
and just like Japan,
urban detritus and stuff. Yeah,
yeah. It's definitely got the combo. You know, the very dystopian landscape of, maybe because there's a lot of areas in China that are, you know, poorer next to places that are like super futuristic, and that's a very like sci-fi kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just like Japan, China is like really safe to just like go anywhere. You know, you don't have to worry about like getting murdered like in the US or whatever. So like Japan and China are both great because you can just wander literally anywhere, and then everybody's just super friendly and like, so that's fun.
We're really blessed and lucky to live in this time. Is I think about it all the time because I love history. Because like, you know, you go back 50, 80, 100 years, 120 years or so, and these places are not places you want to be going to if you're from our culture.
Yeah.
You know? So we're really blessed that we can go there and be like, oh, look at matcha, he's softer. Ha, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's beautiful. It is truly. And I really embrace it, and I don't take it for granted because I'm just like, this is so wonderful. I can see, like, I don't get into politics, but I know like American and Chinese politics are at ends because of various reasons, whatever. But because I don't really, I don't identify with these things. I
also don't get.
I'm a civilian,
and I'm just like, I know Chinese people are cool.
Yeah,
and it's fun to go to China. Yeah. So that's my stance on the politics, I guess.
It's a beautiful,
it's fun.
one.
It's cool. Yeah. I enjoy it. The people are great.
Imagine if only that was the way things would work, you know. So yeah. But there, I mean, I get it. I get why there's friction points and stuff, and I can understand some global superpower, but like flexing and all that kind of crap. It's like, okay, but yeah, I love history so much because I'll study. I found like America, we're in kind of like, every country's had these different steps, and the way they occur power, the way they hold power, the way they run power, and we're in this like kind of still adolescent phase as a country, and it's shifting too and changing. And when I go to like Japan, I just feel like they've just gone through all the adolescent stuff, and they've kind of figured out this is how we do it. We're a monoculture. This is how we work. And step out of line, you're done. It's like, to stay in the lines, this is a good life. It's like, okay, cool. I could deal with that.
And and from my outsider's perspective, it's an amazing place to live and work. You live and visit, but I've never, never lived or worked there. Yeah. So like, I don't know how, I know that is said to be stressful, but at least the visiting aspect and
it's like Disneyland. You want to work at Disneyland or visit it. So I think I was talking to Monica about that too. I was like, I wonder if we love it so much because like every time we come here, we're like not working and we're just able to do whatever the hell we want. So that adds to it. But if we're here and we're working, we're amongst the working class. Does that change the dynamic? And I'm sure to a certain degree. I just know I'd be taking a lot more photographs.
Yeah. It's just take a lot more
I'd be on the
pictures.
freaking train
Yeah, it's
everywhere all the
interesting.
time. Yeah.
Because I don't think I could ever live or ever want to live in like New York or LA or whatever, but
me
like
neither.
just like a big city like that. But I feel like I could live in Tokyo, which is weird because it's even bigger
Yeah.
by a lot.
What is that then?
But it does.
Safer, right?
I don't know. It doesn't. I guess it's
Cleaner?
safer and like it feels like, and it's way
Better
cleaner
culture?
and quieter.
Just kidding, guys. Yeah, but I'm not really.
Yeah, it's always funny when you go to the airport, like to leaving Japan or whatever. You go to like you go to like the airport lounge or whatever, and then you're like, oh, yep, I'm back. I'm back with the Americans now because everybody's super loud.
Gunslinging
They're just like
with their opinions everywhere. And I go, shut up.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I miss like literally no one talking on their phones in public and like being quiet, and
God.
it's great.
Why do people do that?
Yeah.
They talk loud with the speaker on the camera and their phone.
Yeah, and as soon as you go to the airport, everyone's like on their phone,
it's
like
totally that. They're like
talking super loud. And you're like, oh, yep, here we are. Yeah, we're back.
We had that same happen. My wife didn't get there, and I was like, just forewarning, there's people with their phones out talking to their screens at full volume, and she's like, ugh. So like, we put on headphones and we'll block out the world. Yeah, it is a big shift when you go from these different cultures and stuff and living and saturating yourself with it as much as possible and shifting out of it. It's like, oh man, yeah, that was a lot of change, you know. In comparison.
But I've been really thankful to like go to travel to these places, and I really appreciate the time that I've been there and getting to like experience. I feel like people like should have like mandated and paid for it, like
society
international travel just to like
so
see
good.
other places.
It's so good for your soul. Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult. It's expensive, and I can get why. What's a couple places on your list that you haven't been to that you really want to go?
It's kind of funny because like that group of friends, David, Casper, and Jonas.
These are friends that one of them I know does an incredible photo blog for camera gear. Jonas.
Yep, and he shoots like Fuji's product shots and stuff.
Photographer
Casper's an amazing. Yeah, Casper's also an amazing photographer. They're both from Denmark. And then David works for MKBHD, like one of the biggest tech YouTubers. He like does their script writing and does their podcast and stuff. And he's also a super good photographer who's super into anamorphic aspect ratio, panoramic cameras and all that stuff. But you
guys did a podcast
it was funny
together on the
me and David did. Yeah, actually, this is the first podcast I've ever done without David.
Oh, really?
We've like every time I've done a podcast, it's been with David.
Whoa, that's weird.
Just funny.
Why is that?
Yeah, we're just I don't know. It's just like someone asks. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, it's just funny. We've always been. Not that I've done like a ton of podcasts, but yeah, that's just kind of funny.
I didn't realize that.
But yeah, so we actually went to Iceland together last year. That group of four. And then we went to Japan together. So now we're going to start doing like a yearly trip somewhere. But then they're like, they're thinking about going to Patagonia.
I was going to say that.
And I was like, we could go to Patagonia or we could go back to Japan. I'm like, I'm literally fine if we just keep going to Japan.
Japan has
so
a lot
I don't
to
know.
offer.
I mean, I've been to like other, so just this last year, I did like a stupid amount of international travel. But I went to Iceland and Sweden and then China and then Japan 3 times.
Wow. Three times to Japan, 1 time to China,
and
Iceland, Sweden.
Yeah. And then Sweden and Iceland.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So Sweden and Iceland, that was the first time I've like been to another country other than China and Japan.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Or Canada, but Canada doesn't count because it feels like the U.S.
It's just Northern America.
Yeah. It's just
There's no
it's
border
just Michigan,
there.
essentially.
We own them, dude. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. You thought we were done with politics. Yeah. But
my friends are
yeah, so I'd only ever gone to Asia, to Japan or China. I don't know. I really like going there, and I speak Japanese and I speak Chinese, so it kind of makes me just only want to keep going there because to just get better at Japanese and Chinese, essentially. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I mean, that's I feel like it would be fun to go to like a desert somewhere. That'd be cool. There's also a desert in China, so I could just go there to do that.
I want to go to Oman. I've been wanting to go to Oman.
Oman.
Yeah, have you looked at Oman? Wow, really beautiful. There's some incredible drone footage on YouTube of just, sometimes they just set the drone up on these like special locations, and Oman looks really cool. Saudi Arabia is really interesting, but Oman.
I want to go to like Bulgaria, I think.
Yeah.
There's like these crazy like Soviet monuments that are there that have been like
Serbia.
bookmarked on my computer for like 1,000 years. Yeah. That would be really cool to go. I mean, obviously going to Pripyat or however you pronounce that.
I don't know.
It's probably not a smart Chernobyl.
Oh yeah, Chernobyl. Yeah.
That would be cool. Obviously, that's not on the table at the moment.
Yeah.
But my friend went there. Yeah, I don't know. My friend went there a few years ago before all that stuff happened. That would just be super cool. I've always been obsessed with like that whole like
Did you watch the show?
With the yeah. Chernobyl was a really good show.
Kander shot that stuff too. His photography was fantastic from Chernobyl. Did I send you those photos?
No,
Beautiful.
I didn't know that. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how you can call
I can't wait to look at
awesome. It's like, that's pretty awesome.
Okay. That is now a quote on the internet from me. Chernobyl. That was awesome.
GX8.
Whoops. Yeah. You
just us in.
Sci-fi YouTuber quotes Chernobyl disaster was awesome.
Yeah, it's so bad. Again, context of
you know what I mean, internet.
Yeah, internet. Yeah, use your filter. Use your AI filter and get this right.
Yeah, where's the AI? Where's your AI?
Yeah, there's so many places, and that's what I love about photography, cinematography, shooting, and stuff. There's so many. It really unlocks you creatively to go explore so many places, and even like around where I live in. I mean, Southern California has got a ton of variety, so which is wonderful. I'm really thankful. But like even here, and I'll send you pictures, or I'll send Greg pictures of Greg's like, "Where is that?" And I'm like, "That's just like 40 minutes from my house." Like, okay. I think it's just a matter of essence of going into these places, and you don't know what you're going to see until you're there, truly. So it's a bit of like wanderlust and adventurism that is attached to it that I really love too. And like the studio photography, like shooting props and of like a soda bottle being perfect, and it was so labor intensive. I tried that, so I'm like, ugh. It's like I'd rather just like shoot from the hip randomly in the woods or something, But I have friends that like love studio photography, and they love like setting up lights and stuff, which there's an affinity for that. There's a time and place, but yeah. Okay, last question. What's on the horizon for you that you're really excited about, that you might be able to talk about a little bit, or something that it's giving you excitement, basically. Yeah, something that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to like try to figure out how to make a product or something, like just because I like making things, and I have essentially experience with like DIY manufacturing, machining and 3D printing and 3D design and CAD stuff. I think it would be really fun to try to make something. And I have connections to China, which is a very like low barrier to entry for getting stuff made, and it would be fun to make stuff there. I know like there's also always like the stigma of like made in China always just being like the shittiest things, and I kind of like finding things that are made there that like are really awesome. And to say it's not all just like shit that's made there, because I literally have friends there, so it's like that's like very rude to the a whole culture to just say everything they make is shit. So it would be fun to do that.
In America, so people just go, oh, one thing's bad, and it's like everything's bad. So
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it would just be fun. I think it would be fun to make something, and I wanna kind of go down that path and see what can be done there.
Building the universe around it. Huh?
Yeah, and integrating that into everything. Yeah. Basically, like that, and kind of just fleshing out more of the kind of world of the GXACE channel. Essentially, like I just think it's funny that like in a video that's ostensibly like a camera review, that there's just like, for no other apparent reason, there's just like a sci-fi universe in the background. I just think that's funny, and like it's just so, like, why would someone do that? And like, I don't know, I just think it's cool. Like, and then I can just use that as like a vehicle of injecting these cool, interesting sci-fi ideas, and I just want to keep growing that. And I've been kind of brainstorming with some friends of making like an actual like lore behind everything, and kind of injecting more of that into there. I've done in the past, I don't know if I ever showed you this or not, but I made actually for the Osborne Computer Corporation, I made like a fake commercial essentially for a supercomputer. I don't know if I showed that to you or not today.
Or did you mention it?
It is, yeah. It's in a while ago. It was like a few years ago though.
Right? Or something?
Yeah, it like literally just like blasts onto the screen, and it has like the skip ad button that like burned into it. But that was all done, in like Cinema 4D or whatever, and it was just fun to make like a fake product. And I have these kind of like ideas of like playing with the idea of sponsors, because that's such a big part of YouTube. Like, I can start making these like fake companies, these like sci-fi companies that live within my universe. Yeah, that like are sponsoring my channel, and then I have like these like fake products that are just like from this universe. Like, I don't know. I mean, I did with my mask that's actually lighting my face right now. Like, I made a video about that, like in the universe, and that it was this device that I had designed when I was a freelancer for Osborne Computer Corporation and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I think it would just be fun to. It's like such a. Yeah, like I said, YouTube is like a really perfect vehicle for like.
For you.
For like. Yeah.
A creative that likes to do all the things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I like to do all the things, and it's perfect.
And you find joy in it, because that's why you do it. Yeah. Love it, man. Yeah. I appreciate you, dude. I know everybody that...
I appreciate you as well.
I know everybody that enjoys what you do is very appreciative of you as well, and keep doing what you're doing, because it's inspiring. And yeah, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold. Getting over it from being back in America, just in Japan. My body misses it so hard, it just put itself into stasis of sickness.
You got the sickness of not being in Japan.
It's called homesick.
homesick. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Doing what you're doing.
This has been awesome.
I'm looking forward to us making our amazing X Pan. It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Yes, that we have to do.
It started here in this podcast.
Like, I'm not even joking. We got to do that.
Oh, we will.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, man.
That's a good cliffhanger.
Until next episode, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. See you, buddy.
Yeah, see ya.